This video is covering hybrid zones and speciation, and it's using the ideas and framework from Campbell biology. So this is the figure that we start out with in Campbell for hybrid zones and speciation, and this is showing a lineage that has recently undergone speciation. Here's our time axis. So in this part of the lineage, we've got a single lineage, single species, and that means that there's gene flow within the species. Now, when it splits, splitting the species technically is the cessation of gene flow between these two populations. And so we're going to end up with two distinct populations, the blue population and the yellow population, or sorry, the blue species and the yellow species, and they're no longer exchanging genetic information. So we put them kind of like in their little silos. But when speciation first happens, it is not uncommon for there to be some amount of genetic exchange between the two new species. They're just not genetically distinct enough yet. And this is our hybridization here. So hybridization. And where the hybrids live, we call that our hybrid zone. It's usually not a huge amount of space when we're thinking about it in these terms. So here's going to be our hybrid zone here. These are our hybrids. Hybrids which live in the hybrid zone. So the question that we're looking at today is what happens next? So what's going to happen next here? Now, nothing can happen. This can be a stable situation and it doesn't change, meaning that we keep both of the parent populations and we also maintain the hybrid zone. So the parent populations eventually are going to stop diverging. So we'll just, draw them as regular lines here. Okay, so they're no longer diverging now. Okay, we're still keeping almost all gene flow. Almost all gene flow is staying within these lineages, but we're going to have some gene flow between them, and that's going to be our hybrid zone. Even though that looks really big, this actually is only going to represent a really small number of organisms compared to the two species. So compared to the blue and yellow species, even though it looks really big. When we're in this situation, we call this stability. That's an easy one to remember because it's stable. So this is stability. What if the situation is unstable? Well, let's first think about what happens if these hybrids have low viability, okay? So hybrids have low viability, or they have low fertility, or maybe they just aren't as fit as the non-hybrid individuals. They're not as fit as the yellow species or blue species. So, or low fitness. Okay. In any of these situations, let's start out with our same start as we had before. Okay, in any of these situations, any individuals in either of the parent species that are participating in hybridization, meaning mating with someone from the other species, any of those individuals are lowering their own fitness. So here we're going to have some genetic exchange. One of the yellow individuals is mating with one of the blue individuals. One of the blue individuals mating with one of the yellow individuals. Okay, so we have some hybridization and hybrids are produced. But since these hybrids have lower fitness than if the blue individual had mated with another blue individual or a yellow individual had mated with another yellow individual, this is going to lower the fitness of the parents because they're giving rise to low fitness offspring. So their alleles have a lower chance of going on to the next generation. If your alleles have a lower chance of going on to the next generation, then your alleles are eventually going to decline in frequency in the population. So any alleles that were allowing you to mate with the wrong species, those alleles will eventually get weeded out of the population. And so over time, we expect the frequency of this to decline. So the number of hybrids that we get over time will decline if the hybrids are low fitness compared to the parent species. And this happens via a mechanism called reinforcement. So hybrid abundance. Maybe I should say abundance of hybrids. There we go. Abundance of hybrids declines. And these two species stop mating, and that's due to reinforcement. Okay, so under reinforcement, we get the evolution of prezygotic barriers. And these are going to have the effect of preventing mating and production of low fitness offspring. And I should say low fitness hybrid offspring. We encountered this before. Low fitness hybrid offspring. We encountered this before with those pied versus collared bird catchers, or flycatcher birds. Flycatcher birds, not bird catcher flies. That would be pretty amazing though. Okay, so this prevents the production of low fitness offspring. We call it reinforcement. All right, so we've got two situations. We've got stability, where the hybrid zone might be small, but at least it's stable, so it gets maintained. These hybrids don't really invade the other populations. They stay kind of in their own ecological niche. We have reinforcement, where we lose our hybrids. We don't have hybrids anymore because the hybrids have low fitness, and so instead we get the evolution of prezygotic mating barriers. Okay, and there's one more thing that can happen. What if the hybrids have high fitness? So the hybrids have high fitness. They have opportunities to mate. They have opportunities to mate with parent species. And really importantly, not only do they just have high fitness in their own niche in the hybrid zone, they also can invade the other zone. So they have high fitness, and they can they can live in the ecological zones of the original species as well. Okay, so they can invade the non-hybrid zone. Alternatively, the other species, the yellow and blue species, could invade the hybrid zone. So what this means is that there's going to be a lot of mating. So the result of this is a lot of mating between the hybrids and the parent species. Okay, so let's look at what will happen in this situation. Okay, so we're going to start out with our speciation event. We already talked about what can cause these, so I'm not going to talk about this here. Okay, our speciation event, we get out of this our blue species, okay, where there's lots of gene flow. Our yellow species, lots of gene flow. Between these two species, very little gene flow. And all of that gene flow is from the hybrids. Okay, so we get production of hybrids from these matings. But now these hybrids are not just, we're not just getting sort of, information in to produce the hybrids. The hybrids are mating with each other, and they're mating back with the parent species. So we're getting bidirectional exchange of genetic material, and it's extensive. So this has to be extensive exchange. We can't just have a tiny little hybrid zone like we did over here in our stability example. Now we have to have lots of genetic exchange. So this is lots of genetic exchange. Lots of hybrid mating. Now when this happens, we're basically going back to a situation where we have gene flow between two populations rather than two species. And with enough gene flow, we're going to just collapse these back down into a single species. Okay, so our hybrids, we still have hybrids, But now these hybrids are just hybrids between two populations, two metapopulations. So, two populations making a giant metapopulation where there's extensive gene flow. Okay, so eventually these will collapse back into a single species if there's high enough gene flow. So this is if high enough gene flow. Okay, and we call this situation fusion. All right, so we've got three possibilities. We've got fusion, we've got reinforcement, and we've got stability. Okay, our three populations when we have speciation followed by hybridization.